Go.
Yeah, looks like, is Kevin around? Is Kevin here?
Yeah, Kevin's here.
Okay.
I haven't heard from Kevin in a couple of days. He was not feeling well
Right.
since the last meeting, so
He said hello to me
Oh,
earlier.
good. Yeah, Kevin was under the weather here recently, so.
Yeah.
Who's the vice chair?
Martin.
Martin is away.
Morning, Ronald.
Morning, Charlie. Morning, everyone.
There's Kevin. You got your pink shirt on too, Kev.
Good
Me
morning.
as well.
Good morning. Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Looking good. Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Morning, everyone.
Morning, Kevin.
Good morning.
So, Mr. Chairman, you do
You're
have a
muted.
quorum.
You're muted,
Yes.
Kevin.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I was just asking if there was confirmation of quorum. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Everyone today. I'll call the meeting to order. So the adoption of the public agenda.
So moved.
Thank
Second.
you.
Abram.
Moved by Abram. Thank you. Seconded by Mr. Cornfield.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Any discussions? Hearing none, I'll call question. And that moves us to on petitions and delegations. I see none. So adoption of our previous minutes.
So moved. Abram.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. Who is that? Who seconded?
I'm Sarah Fowler. I'm taking Martin's place today.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Alrighty. Any discussion? All right. Hearing none, I'll call question. Business F, business arising from the minutes. Hearing no business arising, onto chair's report. And well, today is my first day back. I've been off for the past week because the COVID has been going through my household here, and yeah, it definitely took its toll on me. So it's nice to be out of bed and out and doing things. So definitely glad to be here for my first day back. Good timing. Thank you.
Welcome.
That's about all I have to report at the moment. And so that moves us on to staff reports. Comox First Nation Cultural and Heritage Policy.
Move receipt.
Thank you. Moved. Sorry, was that seconded?
Yeah, second.
Yeah, thank you. Seconded.
And I believe Tina will speak to this, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll hand the floor over to you, Tina.
Good morning. Thank you. So for the Comox First Nation Cultural Heritage Policy, I've met with staff from Comox First Nation in regards to discussions, and that was the intent of the Cultural Heritage Policy is on the ARC sites in their core territory. And so when it comes to overlapping territory, it'll be handled differently, and their main concern is the registered archaeological sites in their core territory. Meeting with staff at the SRD, there was a few follow-up questions that were had, specific questions they had. So At this point in time, I'm waiting for a response from Comox on the questions that were had. And that's where we are with that, just waiting for more information.
Alrighty, thank you, thank you. Where do we move on from here?
I think Director Abram has a question. Can you see
Oh.
the hands?
I see
Perfect,
it now.
thanks.
Yes, thank you very much.
I'm
Yes,
sorry.
Director Abram, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. I'm sorry. I was jumping the gun here. I wanted to do a motion after receipt.
Okay, all right, thank you. Do I go to receipt on the motion?
I think
No.
Director Cornfield has a question.
Oh, I see his hand now as well. Sorry about that. Go ahead, Director Cornfield.
So, through to Tina, I guess. They talk about registered archaeological sites in their core territory. What is considered core territory?
Their core territory is from the Englishman River up to around Miracle Beach, and it's Sayward.
Okay, because they're in, forget what phase of treaty, but they have settlement lands proposed, so that as they come to treaty, what happens then?
What I can do is, like I said, I'm waiting for answers on a few questions, and I can take questions to add to, so that could be another question I can ask.
Okay, and archaeological sites are protected under provincial legislation, and it's very restrictive. So if, as an example, in the city of Campbell River, any one of our contractors or developers hits any archaeological remains, everything shuts down.
Yeah.
Until it's done. So their policy, another question to ask, which is paramount, provincial or their heritage policy? Or would it be the most restrictive one?
Okay.
And that's it, Chair, for my questions.
Okay, thank you, Director Cornfield. Looking forward to hearing back on those questions. Did anybody else have any questions around the table? All right, hearing none, are we okay for the receipt on the motion? That be our next step?
Mr. Chairman, the motion is on the floor, moved and seconded, so the next thing would be to call for a vote. And then I believe Director Abram had a subsequent he wished to put forward.
Yes, okay, thank you. Director Abram?
Yeah, okay, so nobody opposed on receipt, so.
Oh, yeah. Was I supposed to go on receipt?
Yeah,
as well before?
Yeah, just call a vote on receipt. Any opposed?
Okay, call the vote on receipt, and if there's any opposed, sorry. Okay, thank you.
Hearing none, motion carries.
Hearing none, motion carried. Thank you. Thank you.
And now I think Director Abram has a motion for us.
Okay, go ahead, Director Abram.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. I would just look at the report that was provided by the CAO, and there were two options there. And I would move option one, which is basically just waiting for a letter in response to our questions, letter, et cetera. And I think that's the courteous thing to do, to at least give them the option to reply to our letter. They have capacity issues just like all the rest of us do and all the rest of the First Nations. And I wouldn't want to see us invite them to come up, as option 2 says, and spend the day wasting their time to come up and just answer questions that they could do in a letter. And then if we need to later, we can invite them up for another session. But I would move the option that is in the report as it's written.
All right, thank you.
If there's-
We'll need a second for option 1.
Second.
Do we have a seconder? Oh, Director Cornfield, thank you. Is there any discussion or? Hearing no discussion, motion.
Question on the motion.
Director Cornfield. Yeah, Director Cornfield.
Oh, sorry, I hadn't taken my hand down.
Okay, no worries.
There.
All right. Sorry, what was that question on motion?
Just a question. Any opposed on the motion?
Oh, okay, sorry. Any opposed? Any opposed on the motion? Hearing none, motion carried. And then that moves us on to number 2, which is the regional governance and.
Move receipt. Abram.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Thank you. Would this be under Tina as well, or no? Who would this be under?
Well, Mr. Chair, Director Cornfield may want to speak to this. This was a motion that was moved by Director Cornfield at the board. So I think we'll defer to Director Cornfield on this.
Okay, thank you.
So, yeah, right. Thanks, Dave. Anyway, in the letter from Minister Osborne, they talked about inclusive regional governance and, actions that support reconciliation. And I felt that it was important that we have discussion at the committee level. Not sure how we inclusive regional governance for First Nations that are not at the treaty table, right, or have not achieved treaty. Inclusive governance was fairly easy with Cayuga-Checklisset, because you had been through the treaty process and you chose to join the Strathcona Regional District. But I'm not sure. In the past, we have had participation by Comox when we were the joint Comox Strathcona Regional District, but they participated only as observers, and I don't know if any of that would fall into this inclusive regional governance thought that the province has. And the other thing is just about how we communicate. Like, we have our directors portal where information is posted on First Nations, and whether or not we were asked by the province to share any of the stuff that we have as we make progress and do things, and whether or not we are following up on that. So that's just my take to sort of why it was brought forward to the committee, or why I moved the motion and Julie seconded the motion, so that we have some discussion on it.
Thank you, Director Cornfield. I see Director Abrams' hand is up.
Thank you again, Kevin. Yeah, and I thank Charlie for bringing up that point about our policy under the CSRD, which carries forward to the SRD when we split. of inviting, if you recall, Charlie, we invited all of the First Nations in our regional district to participate as observers. And we only had, I shouldn't say we had two actually. We had a Comox First Nation person, and at one point we had Jim Wilson from Wewakai participated for a number of meetings sporadically, but it was there. The offer was there. It was regional governance, including First Nations. We also have a perfect example here with Kevin being not only on the board, on the First Nations Relations Committee, and also is the chair. So, I think that's an example that we can send to the province. We have naming issues that could be pointed out, like Quast Park on Cortez Island, and I think there was another one. I don't remember what it was though. And what else was there? The fact that we have appointed directors to, I believe, all of the treaty advisory committees that have First Nations in treaty processes. So I think we're moving along quite nicely with trying to keep up with being an integrated regional district with First Nations, not a segregated one. So I think those are things that can be passed on to the minister, and also I can give you an Area C example. I'm working with the chief of the Wewakai concerning what do they call them? Where you guys have an agreement between governments. Dave, you know the term, but it's an agreement, and the agreement is regarding sewer issues. We're working on that. I believe we're working on another one that Dave brought up to me the other day that I can't remember if it was in camera or not. And we're also working on the Connected Coast together. So I think, all in all,
agreement.
we've pardon me, service agreement. That's right. Thank you, Charlie. Yeah, service agreement. Okay, so anyway, that would be my input to this letter. If you are interested in writing back to the minister to do what she asked, which was to please share examples of recent initiatives in your communities for building relations with First Nations. So I think we can do that. It's actually just on a website or a email site, relations@civicinfo.bc.ca. So that will give not only the minister the information, but it will give other local governments the information that what we're doing are things that they could also be doing if they aren't already. And I know some other regional districts are doing things. So anyway, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Abram and Director Cornfield.
Well, just very quickly, the fact that we created the portal, the director's portal, and if you look under correspondence, every bit of correspondence that comes in is put on here. Then it's all supposed to be transferred to the director's portal on First Nations relations. So the fact that we already collect what other people are doing and it's put into a one location where it's accessible by all directors, I think is an important step as well for that whole regional governance. And yeah, just the fact that they may want to, some areas probably don't have a portal process. So you could send it to them, but unless it's put somewhere where people can get at it, it doesn't make any sense, right? So.
So, Mr. Chair, just listening to some of the comments here, maybe a couple options I can offer, that either a staff report on SRD regional governance that supports reconciliation could be brought back, or maybe a draft letter that supports the SRD regional governance on reconciliation could also be brought, if that's the will of the committee.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Director Abram.
Yeah, okay, and I think that was a good suggestion by Dave, his second option, that we just write a letter to this relations@civicinfo.bc.ca, because that will be a UBCM, basically a portal, and everybody will be able to access it. So if we send what it is we're doing via letter to that site, then we will have accomplished what we need to accomplish, which is share our information with others. So I would move, actually, that the
Sorry, Director.
We're still
suggestion.
on receipt.
We still have a motion on the floor,
Oh,
Mr.
sorry, I
Chairman.
didn't.
I think once you call the question
Sorry.
on receipt, then the floor would be free, of course, for directors to offer
I'll
further.
do a substitute.
Alrighty. Thank you. Thank you. Do we have a question on receipt? I guess I call question on receipt, right?
Yeah, ask if there's any opposed.
Okay, is there any opposed? Hearing none. Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Chair,
Director Abram, yes.
based on Director Abram, maybe I'll just loft this out there, and if anyone's interested, that a draft letter be brought to the First Nations Relations Committee on SRD regional governance that supports reconciliation, if that captures what Director Abram was thinking.
So moved.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Thank you. Any discussion? I'll call question on the motion. Motion carried. So this moves us on to item number 3, which is elected officials cultural awareness training. And who would be taking this one on?
I think on receipt, we'll just get a mover and a seconder, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
So moved.
Moved by Director Abram. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it. Moglove.
And Mr. Chair, I believe Tina will speak to this.
Thank you. The floor is yours, Tina.
Thank you very much. So the last item was a good segue into this item in regards to the elected officials cultural awareness training. And there is a planned workshop from May 2nd to 4th and workshop training. And what would be covered under these trainings would be truth and reconciliation and the calls to action, the United Nations Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People, or UNDRIP, the Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act, which is known as DRIPA, benefits of relationship building, different First Nation governance structures, because in the SRD area, there is treaty, there is Indian Act, there is election code, there's the hereditary system. Different types of planning. So you got land code, you have the comprehensive community plan, treaty negotiations, and there's different types of agreements and protocols, like that was just discussed, the MTSA service agreements. The economic development is different for every nation as well in their structure. How to build an action plan moving forward, and that would be included future C2Cs with each First Nation. There will be An elder, local elder, is doing a welcome in cedar brushing and cultural content to that. Because what was in the last topic, the last item, it stated that many local governments shared examples of collaboration, including working together on cultural arts, heritage projects, developing service agreements, MOUs, incorporating Indigenous language into signage, public spaces, to name a few. So this workshop would be a great foundation with people who work in this area, who have experience in this area, that you'd be able to ask questions to, have discussions on, and discussions with each other, to be able to have this foundation and be able to support you moving forward in your vision and planning, in reconciliation and DRIPA. This will help show the 10 First Nations in the area of that the SRD directors are committed to reconciliation and doing the work that they need to do, to enhance their knowledge, to move forward, helping move forward. So this is just information sharing on what the workshop is going to look like. And so that is the content. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Do we have any questions for Tina? I see Director Moglov. I
You're
think
muted,
you're on mute.
Claire.
Sorry, I'll put my hand down. I didn't actually, yeah, no, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Director Cornfield, I see your hand is up.
Yep. Hopefully everybody takes this the right way. Is there a is there courses that for First Nations to take on, I don't want to use the term cultural awareness training, but to on our systems, how we function, what protocols are? Is there any communication is always a two-way street? It's how we talk to each other. And is there, like, it's one thing for us to learn about First Nations, but is there another one that is about First Nations learning about our system and how we function?
If I can, Mr. Chair, yeah, one that's come up before, and I think the best answer to that has been a couple things. One, LGLA, for local governments, offers a number of courses and programs for ourselves that if First Nations were interested, that's the best way for staff and elected officials to educate ourselves on our own process. So I think there's an opportunity there should the First Nation be interested in. And the other thing is that we've used as kind of a tool for that is C2Cs to kind of do an introduction to sharing in terms of local governance, and that has kind of spawned off into other meetings as well and discussions about that. But I think formally courses, I think LGLA probably offers a complete a list of things that that you're speaking of, and again, I think a C2C is another way of doing that.
Okay. I remember when I met the first chief counselor for Niska after they gained their independence, and that was at an LGLA. And he had brought his whole band council down, and it was good, but I had interaction with them, but there wasn't a great interaction with the rest of the people because I think LGLA hadn't really made it clear of the advantage of having some First Nations there participating. So I enjoyed it and I learned a lot. And I think they learned a fair bit from me, but it wasn't sort of universal. So I like the concept of doing it through the LGLA. I'm just not sure how we would go about recommending that the First Nations we deal with in the SRD could participate. But
I think that's something that maybe, again, Tina's on and listening, is that maybe Tina can connect with LGLA. And this is a new item, is that there is not a lot of First Nations on regional board, but obviously it's growing, and the growth of that is something that we all support. And I think it's something that likely should be on their radar. And maybe Tina can reach out to them and kind of get their focus there for the existing district boards out there that have First Nations. And also it's a good idea, I believe, similar to we're learning their processes and their cultures and their governance, that those opportunities exist as well. So maybe it's a conversation Tina can have with the folks at LGLA, and then she's able to introduce that to First Nations as opportunities if they're interested.
Thank you. I see Director Fowler has her hand up.
I just wanted to highlight the LGLA as April 6th coming up in Richmond. And the theme is reflections on an extraordinary term. So there's definitely a lot of things that have changed since 2018 when I was first elected. And I think that this is one thing that we'll see more of in the future. If I'm going to look in my crystal ball, is we're going to see more participation from First Nations in, as Director Corfield puts it, our way of doing things, right? And learning, like, just sort of being more involved in the actual land use governance and those sorts of things. Thanks.
Thank you. And I see Tina, you have your hand up as well.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to maybe comment that with the First Nations, in the structures that they have, they're all unique. Everyone's unique. There's a lot of unique within those 10 First Nations with, like I said, with the treaty structures, the hereditary structures. Like example, Comox under the Indian Act and the ones who are under election code, they're all governed uniquely. So to be able to form these relationships, it's going to take time to be able to understand that how they operate, how they function, how their funding works, and that's going to take conversation. And another example, the C2Cs, when you meet individually one-on-one, that gives you the opportunity for them to share their unique structure, and for the SRD to be able to share their structure and be able to see where their synergies are able to support each other. But I think this can only be done in a one-on-one way because it's not a cookie cutter structure that they have. And following UNDRIP and the calls to action, and reconciliation, that's all part of it. And to build that foundation to move forward together, it's important to take that time to get to know each other.
Thank you, Tina. I see Director Abram with his hand up.
Yeah, just with regard to Tina's comments, and with no disrespect, of course, there are multiple models, et cetera, within the First Nations structures. But I think Director Cornfield was basically talking about informing all First Nations of what local government is and does, period. It's not a matter of, trying to connect or trying to get them to join one way or the other. It's just a matter of letting them know what's there and how it works. And then if there is 1, 2, or 10 different structures, each one of those can choose their own way of trying to fit into that local government structure procedure under whatever, whether it's under treaty or whether it's under just collaboration or whatever. It's just a matter of informing First Nations, this is how local government works, and leaving it at that.
Thank you, thank you. Is there any more discussion?
So, Mr. Chairman, you have on the floor right now a motion to receive the report.
Yeah, motion to receive the report.
Any opposed?
Is there any opposed? Do I call question on receipt?
No, you
right?
just did.
I just did. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So if you don't, Kevin, if you don't hear anyone,
Yeah.
then you say hearing none, the motion carries.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Hearing none, the motion carries.
And then we move on to if there's any subsequent motions.
Okay.
Right. In other words, if anyone brought anything up or discussed anything, sort of what's the next step.
Okay. Thank you. So are there any subsequent motions? And when I hearing none, do I just call question? Or do I just move on to the next one?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I think we're on the correspondence now, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. By the way, thank you for all being a part of this learning process. On the correspondence now, which is the Central Okanagan Memorandum of Understanding.
Move receipt.
All right, moved by Director Cornfield. Seconder?
Second.
Second by Director Fowler. Thank you, thank you. Hearing no discussion or question on receipt of the motion? Hearing none, motion carried. Does that move us on to our next one?
Yeah.
I would move number 2, Clahoose.
All right, number 2, Clahoose First Nation addition to reserve has been moved.
Second.
Seconded by Fowler. Discussion on receipt?
Yep.
Yes, Director Cornfield.
There was no map attached. And perhaps through to our CAO, when we get these add to reserves, yes, I know it's on Cortez Island, but I didn't see any map. And I'm sorry, but I don't remember parcel descriptors when I think about land. So I'm assuming this is the one that was on the east coast of the island with the road that ran through it, and it was 2 parts that they.
Mr. Chairman, I can speak to that, and I do apologize. There was a map that should have been attached as well. It is in fact the one that Director Cornfield referred to, a parcel of land. It was split by a road and to the south and east, I believe, of Torquay Indian Reserve. So my apologies, there should have been a map attached. I don't know why it wasn't.
For the next meeting, Mr. Chair, we can attach the same correspondence with the map.
Okay, or when it goes to the board, that would be fine.
Okay, thanks.
And that was it for me.
All right, thank you, thank you. Motion on receipt. Question on receipt. Any subsequents? Hearing none. Motion carried. So that moves us to director's reports, new business, addendum items, closed session. Moves us to termination.
So moved.
Second,
Thank you. Seconded.
Anyone opposed?
Anyone opposed? Hearing none. Motion carried.
thanks.
So
You're
Thank
doing
you.
yes.
fine.